This is the audio-only version of the podcast. To watch the video and get more details and show notes, go to paancestors.com. This is Denise Allen with paancestors.com, and welcome to a special holiday episode of the podcast. I am talking to my friend Clemence Scouten about easy, simple family history projects that you can get together in time for this Christmas and every holiday that you celebrate with your family. Clemence, as you remember, is the owner of Memoirs and More, and she is the expert to go to if you are looking for someone to put together a full narrative family history book, like an actual book on your family. But if you are doing it yourself, like many of us are, me included, I needed a place to start with something simple just to get some momentum going, and Clemence is giving me and you some great ideas on how to get that done. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to her website, all the resources that she mentions in the podcast, and also a link to the PA Ancestors newsletter. That's me, PA Ancestors, because there you will find information coming out to you on my super secret Clubhouse member site for people interested in doing their Pennsylvania genealogy and family history and looking for some expert help. So look for the newsletter for details on that coming out. Might be something that you want to gift yourself this year for Christmas, or maybe just as a way to hold yourself accountable to get your work done that you want to do around family history. Now, a quick message about the podcast. We are going to be taking a break, and by we, I mean I, for the holiday season. So one, I want to catch up with all those family history projects. But two, I just want to catch up with family. Things have been so discombobulated the last 2 years, and I just want some sort of normalcy to return. So that is what I'm focusing on this holiday season. I hope you are too, if you haven't gone back to normal already. I know, depending on where you live in the country, things really vary. And I'm going to grab a hold of normal as much as I can for Christmas and the New Year. And I will be back in 2022 with the rest of season 6. You can look forward to episodes from the Presbyterian Historical Society, author Peter Gilmore on the Presbyterians of Western Pennsylvania, and also local historian William Thayer, who will give some tips on doing local history research. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you get lots of great ideas and are able to accomplish what you want for your family for this Christmas. And I will see you in 2022. I'm excited to welcome back Clemence Scouten to the podcast, who is going to give us some really great tips if you were in a pinch for family history projects, family history gifts for the holiday season coming up. Clemence, welcome back.
Thank you, Denise. Really happy to be here again. It was such a fun interview last time. So eager to do it again.
Good. So we wrapped up the podcast and then got talking, and you said, oh, I have ideas that if people don't want to try to compile an entire book and tell the whole story, and we both agreed, oh, it would be fun if we just covered that for people. So what are some of your ideas? I remember one of them, but I don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, kick it off. Tell me.
Yeah. Kick me off. Kick me into gear here.
Okay. Well, so, I think the heart of our idea this for the second podcast came out of this notion that you and I both relate to and observe in others, is this fear of the red pen and writing. And the problem with stories is that, well, I really want to tell that story, and then you don't, because how do I tell the story, and what do I include, and what if there are spelling mistakes? And then you end up talking yourself out of it. I think this happens all the time. And so one of the strategies is either to pick very narrow themes or ideas or periods in time or whatever it is that you pick, and just start there so that you don't get overwhelmed with all the reasons you're worried it will be a bad idea. And so I'm just going to rattle through and show examples of some of those potential ideas. I think one of the ones we talked to very briefly last time, just for the folks who missed it, was, for instance, you could tell the story of what your grandmom's life was like when your pop overseas during the war, right? It's a brief period in time compared to their whole life or their whole marriage. And there are probably a couple standout stories from that time. So it has both an historical interest and a family interest, right? So that would be an example of a very narrow topic. Now, you could also write a whole book about it, of course. Another kind of concept is to look at the collection of materials you have. So, obviously your podcast and your expertise is in genealogy. So you help people find immigration documents and census records and all these things. But for most people, the person doing the research, the person listening to this podcast, you, Denise, know on those documents what matters and what's important, like what to look at, where the clues are. But the person who you're showing it to won't necessarily know that. So you can tell stories based on documents. So for instance, I pulled out a couple. So this is a petition for naturalization. I'm sure your clients would know how to recognize that. But for someone who's just looking at this for the first time, like, oh, you wrote that this is Pop's petition for naturalization? Okay. Then they don't know where to go. Like, what's important? What's not important? So just a short little caption box is all you need to draw the attention to what matters. This is what the document does. Here's what we learned from it. So not complicated to do. And in this family's case, they discovered an ancestor they didn't know existed. It was a child who probably died young because she disappeared. She's not in the other records, but they discovered another person in the family. So that's the kind of narrow, brief storytelling you can do around records, around the actual records you have. Same thing for, a ship manifest. A lot of those ship manifests or immigration documents will say, where the person was going in the United States when they came here and how much money they had on them when they got here. And every day, you, the researcher, know this, you're looking for it, but the person you're showing it to, the grandkid who you're trying to get interested in the story, isn't going to know how to look for that. So put that in your little write-up. Pop John had $14 to his name when he came here. That's part of the story. Where did he go? Oh, he went to someone's, the person in Boston. The person's name was so-and-so. We think that was their neighbor because we had found another document that says X, right? So that's part of the storytelling. And I'm sure examples come to your mind, Denise, about how you can pull the story out of an actual document. And you will have better examples than I. These are just a couple, but
I do have one based on that document that you just showed, because I think we do, and I think this idea is wonderful. It's like what happened before they filled out that document, what the document means, and now that they filled out the document, this is their life, right? So I think that you're giving the whole story around that, because there is a whole story. I pulled for my ancestors that lived in Manayunk the documents, their immigration documents from the Philadelphia City Archives. And so you could tell, like, it was dirty, like the way it was folded, and then the lines, like each crease line. And then I was moved to tears, like thinking they carried this around for years until they could finally fill out the petition. And they filled it out exactly like 5 years to the day that they filled out that declaration of citizenship, because they had come from Germany and they had lost their German citizenship during those years. The deal was, like, if you left Prussia, that's it. You weren't going to be a citizen. You couldn't come back. So once you were gone, you were gone. So they got here, they filled out that declaration, and right away, 5 years to the day, they filled out that petition for citizenship. Like, and I was just, it was really emotional to think, like, people just really wanted to be U.S. citizens. I just immediately connected to the story. Now, did I share it with many people? No. I need to do that because I have pictures of it. I have my pictures of those documents, because they went back into the file.
How easy that is. Now you can take that picture and write just a paragraph, the background of, because I just learned that about Prussia. Like, once you're gone, you're gone. Sayonara, adios, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I mean, that's absolutely part of the story. And it doesn't have, you're not going for a Pulitzer Prize here. Just a couple sentences, and that's so anyway, so that's one category. Hopefully this is giving people ideas. Another that relates to a genealogy documents is maps. I love maps. People in general like maps a lot. And they're all different kinds of maps. You can use them just as a decoration in, if you're creating a book, if you're from Pittsburgh, put a map of Pittsburgh, as the background to your book here. I think that's what I did for this book. For the back cover, it's a map of Italy.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, it doesn't even do anything special. It's just a map. But people really like that kind of stuff. For this client, we had identified where the family had businesses in Philadelphia in the early 1900s, maybe through the war or something like that, the 40s and 50s. And so we got a little map of Philadelphia and we put arrows with the addresses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not complicated to do, but it tells a story. Here's where they were, and it helps the reader who's looking at this say, "Oh well, next time I'm in Old City, I'm going to walk by those places, many of which don't exist anymore because a lot of those buildings were torn down." And then it's real easy to, you have the address, you have a little map, and now it's real easy to write a couple sentences about, the first company they had was so-and-so. They made dresses. They made, whatever they made. And these family members worked there. We're not going for Pulitzer, just even telling these basic facts. It is part of the storytelling. It's part of the story. Another, if you really want to get elaborate with maps, you can do this. We got a map of Philadelphia, and what we did, I'll show you this side of the map. We put legends on it. So that show the residences and the businesses of this family over time. And so it has a whole, explanatory piece to it as well, so that reader can follow it. But it shows, where people moved, how they lived, what neighborhoods they were in, when they moved to a better neighborhood. So again, this is storytelling through imagery instead of a narrative. So that's kind of fun. I love maps. I'll say it.
Just that map alone would be a great gift for someone, so if you had ancestors that lived in and maybe all the cousins and brothers, sisters and everything in one area, you could just do a map of that area and then put fun icons on it and then explain. Yeah,
absolutely.
That would be fun.
One of my clients, we worked on a map for her and we printed it in real size. So it was, maybe 2 feet by 3 feet or something like this. And she had done all the research herself. And then we put these little, dots for the different family members. And she did a surprise for her husband for a big birthday. And then they did a walking tour of those neighborhoods, the Jewish family. So they walked a lot around, what they now call Queen. So, the Fabric Row and all that kind of stuff. And there's still, a bunch of old Jewish bathhouses and insignia on a lot of the buildings indicating what that population was like at the time. And then all the way up into North Philly, Strawberry Mansion area, where when you had a little money, and that's where he went. So yeah, very meaningful. Very meaningful.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. Okay.
So another idea that you can do, again, this is all based what's in your personal collection. I'm not saying go out and do this research. It just happens that people know this stuff or they don't. So really take a look at the materials you have. Mm-hmm. If one of the set of materials you have is correspondence or a diary or a journal, you can do stuff with that. And the nice thing about that, as far as storytelling goes, somebody else is telling the story. It's already been told, right? So if you have correspondence, just read the letters and it's such a good snapshot of the point in time. It rained today. I had to go and take the dog to the vet, or, we got a new puppy, or, the kids Halloween costumes that have to be made, whatever the person's talking about, it just shows the details of everyday life, which I think is really cool. Here's how you just do that. You scan the letters. And so it's nothing fancy, right? It's just letters. But you can also pair them. Here, let me find a page for you. You can pair it with pictures. So if you say, the dog died, you can have a picture of the dog.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, then you have, or the house that they were living in at the time, or,
Exactly. And you'll be surprised how many of those big moments you actually have pictures of. And not even the big moments, just, we got a new puppy. I'll tell you, I have a picture of a puppy. We went on vacation to this place. You have a picture of that vacation. So very quickly you can, make it not just about the correspondence and include stuff from within. So anyway, so that's another idea for people in terms of telling a story. With correspondence, it's also nice to maybe like write a little summary of who the person was, or people. Sometimes it's back and forth, what the period of time is. These are letters from 1960 to 1975, or these are the letters from when Pop was in the army, or, whatever it is, just to put the reader, the context. But then just put them in a book. And when it's just images like this, is really, photo books are real easy to, throw together. So that's another idea for.
And what are you using for that? You're scanning the original documents, and then you're using a photo book service. So just any photo book service, or?
Well, so a lot of people already have a photo book service they use and like. So some of them would be Mixbook. Mixbook I like a lot. It's good quality. I like their customer service. They actually have a functional customer service, which not all.
It's always a bonus.
Another popular one is Shutterfly. Most people have heard of Shutterfly. I personally do not like Snapfish, but Snapfish is another one. My go-to really are Blurb, blurb.com, and Mixbook.com. All of those run sales all the time. So if you're not working with a deadline, make sure you wait for that email in your inbox. They have 30% today only, or whatever. So do your book, let it sit in their system, get the email, and then take advantage of the discount.
That's why that sounds like great advice. So do the work, just do the work, and then hit order when the sale.
Right.
Okay.
Do not hit order until that email comes.
Yeah.
Discount code.
Because who doesn't want to save 30% or 50% or, whatever?
The most common is between 20 and 30. From time to time, they have a 40, and maybe once a year, you'll see a 50.
Okay.
But those are real numbers. I mean, the books, the printing, these photo books are not expensive in general. I find them to be very reasonably priced for what they are and for what they allow us to do. But, but if a book is $50, now you're getting 40 off, that pays for tax and shipping and a little extra. So
yeah. And what a great way to just have that information and those documents elsewhere too. You're not the only holder of them if something happens.
Yeah. We can do a whole different podcast on that if you want, because I have lots to say about cloud services for saving your images. And once you buy a book on these services, they generally will save them for a long time. So if you make and design and purchase the book, it's going to be there because they want you to buy the book again sometime, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Certain services will archive them. So Snapfish will archive a book after so many months or a year or whatever it is. And it's a little harder to retrieve. And they don't have it guaranteed. Their job is not an archival service, right? Their job is to sell you books. So if after so many years, if they're done with you, you're not buying that book, they'll get rid of it. So that's just something to keep in mind. But if you're designing a book with text, so if you're just doing caption stuff, just a little bit of text, any one of them is fine. If you actually have a lot of text, if you have, a 10-page document or something that you want to include in the book, then you should use Blurb Bookwrite, which is a free download service. And it manages text much better because you're going to need to put the text on multiple pages. It needs to flow. It needs to do that automatically. You're not going to manually do it for each page. it's a whole thing. Happy to talk about it again another time. We're off topic now.
So I think we're back to decide your goal, pick
Yeah.
a realistic goal, and then pick the tool. So this is what I'm hearing. Like, don't weld yourself to one thing. And I think you're giving me a lot of relief because I am one of those people. I'm like, well, the right way to do it would be to write down everything that I know and to put the footnotes in and everything. But sometimes I just need to do something to have it preserved, right? So like those documents, like I was just talking about, those immigration documents.
Yeah.
Like I can just talk about that and share that and put those people on a map of Manioc.
Yeah.
They had a store and they had a house around the corner and all that, like, and they worked in the factory downhill, because the factories were along the Schuylkill River there and along where the canal was. And, it's just like, just do that. Just talk about that.
Yes. And that's already a lot.
Yeah.
And then once you do that one book, you're going to be like, oh, now that I've done that, that's easier than I thought it was. I'm going to do another one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now I can do, who they married,
Yeah, exactly. And if you choose the same size book, and just are a little strategic about it, you can do volume 1, and have a series. So it's a collection of books. They're all the same font. They're all the same size. And that actually looks nice on a bookshelf too.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And then I feel productive because I'm cranking out.
And you are productive. And I'll tell you, the maps, the Sanborn maps, are in the public domain. You can download them for free at the Penn State Library website. And those are the ones that I showed a moment ago, the little tiny map with the arrows. They're very detailed. They're historical, so they have older streets on them. They're great.
They're beautiful. They're so pretty. I love those. Yeah.
All right. So next.
Oh, you have more. Oh,
well, one more suggestion if you want it.
Yeah. No, I will always take another suggestion. This is good. Okay.
So now that you're feeling a little bit more adventuresome because you did the visual stuff, the maps and the correspondence, you're thinking, okay, now I'm ready to tackle something that's more narrative intensive. How do I do that? How do I tell this? How do I interview someone, or how do I tell a story? So again, don't worry too much about doing it perfectly and what are the perfect questions and all that. But I would certainly prepare some questions. And there are a lot, you can Google, like, interview your parents, interview your grandparents, and you're going to get dozens of websites that say the 20 questions to ask your parents. So you can certainly do it that way. There are a lot of books out there. This one's out of print, but it's hugely helpful. Recording Your Family. It is literally a book of questions. Choosing styles at work for young people. Where were you living your first place on your own? Travel, entertainment, just it's hundreds of questions. It's terrific. On my website, I have a list of questions and examples and suggestions for how to interview your parents. We can put that link in the YouTube page or whatever, however you like to do these things, Denise.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
And here, if you're going to record them when you interview them, that's just phase 1. It's already very cool to have that on tape or on video. So just plan your questions ahead and ask. We talked about this last time too. Ask open-ended questions. So tell me what your childhood was like. Tell me what the kitchen was like when you were growing up. What was your mom's kitchen like?
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
That's a fun one, right? What games did you play when you came home from school? When you were 7-year-old, like, what was it like to come home from school? What did you do? Was there homework? What kind of games did you play? Who did you play with? Were your parents home? And those questions will get someone rolling. And then it's actually hard to stop them because it's fun to talk about yourself. It feels good and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. It's great.
But there you go. So that would be my last suggestion. And then if you really want to, transcribe that and edit it and make a clean document out of that, you should totally do that. I'm sure anybody can do that. You don't have to be Hemingway. Just taking out the O's and ums and, we come home from school and then I forget if it was 7th grade or 6th grade, but just take all that out and put, we come home from school and do X. And there you go. Now your story's there. So that would be my last suggestion for today on how to kind of tackle these basic story ideas.
Oh, perfect. You got me energized again and focused. I I think that's like half my battle these days. It's like, can I get enough energy and focus to do the thing that I want to do versus getting kind of caught up in my head of worrying about, am I doing it right? Is this what I should be working on? Like, just pick something and just roll with it, and then have something to show for it. And
Yeah. And if you do a small, if you pick something small, then if you feel like you're not doing it well enough, you won't have wasted a ton of time. I mean, I think it's
right.
okay with what you do, but
Yeah, I spent, 10 hours on it versus 100 hours. 10 hours isn't a ton of time. I could do that in a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that even though you don't necessarily have a deadline, if you are going to do one of these, try and bang it out. Because if you start it and then you 6 months later, you're like, oh, I should go back to that, and then another 6. So we get distracted very easily. So if you do start one, really try and stay focused and get it done. Otherwise, you'll get annoyed that it's not done yet, and that's one of the things I think makes us quit projects because it doesn't get done fast enough by our own fault.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a joke in our house. We call it the 90% club. Like, can we do this project in 90% of completion and then leave the last 10%? Like, it's like you paint a whole room and then you're like, oh, I'm going to paint that trim around the door later. Honey, it's literally like 10 minutes of work to do the trim around the door. But nope, I'll do all the trim around the base. And then leave the door trim. I'm like, and we giggle ourselves, giggle like in our house, but it's like we've spent COVID doing the 10% of
all these outstanding
people are like, what's the great project you did? I'm like, I've done the 10% of the projects that I pushed off for the last 15 years. So I don't know what that gets me, but that's what I've been working on. But no, I think your idea of doing 100% and just bang it out, like as she said, just do 100% of something, feel the success, feel the momentum, and then build from there. I think that's a good plan. That's a good plan. Clemence, thank you. You just saved Christmas. No, I don't. But it's good going into 2022 too, because you think every beginning of every year, like, what are my goals this year? I'm like, oh, I could do, now you got me going for 2022 too. So thank you. So yeah, come on, Scouting Memoirs and More. Check out our website. Listen to this video 4 times if you have to get energized and focused. You can do it. Thanks, Clemence.
You're very welcome. Take care, Denise. See you next time.